So here you will see our ingredients. These ingredients are for the first day. You have to prepare the insides of the empanadas the day before, and they sit in the fridge the day after. And I'll go through these ingredients that I have here. So for spices and seasonings, I have cumin, cilantro, very finely chopped cilantro leaves. You can do fresh or dried. Some Italian seasoning, primarily for the oregano, so you can use oregano instead if that's all you have. We have red pepper, and I'll be using a Spanish sweet paprika today, but you can use pretty much any old paprika you want. This just kind of goes a little with it. Smoked paprika I think would be really good with this as well. You'll need 2 eggs, 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, 3 Roma tomatoes, and 1 red and 1 yellow pepper. Then we also have 2 pounds of lean ground meat, and I'm also missing a medium onion. And here is the onion. You can use a yellow or a white onion. Medium size. This is, about the size of a fist. Size of one of my fists. Next to the Roma tomato, it's about that size. So, outside of that, standard seasonings would be salt and pepper. So for the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and prep the things that we need in order to cook the entire mixture that goes into the stuffing. So the first steps we're going to do is to chop up all of our ingredients in different ways, and I'll show and demonstrate in what ways we want those ingredients chopped. And the special way we actually get the tomato. We don't use the entire tomato, we only use the meat of it, and I'll show how we do that. Also, we need to boil these 2 eggs and crush and dice the garlic. So many people may not have actually worked with a garlic clove before. So they look kind of like this when you pull them off the bunch. Some of them will be this size, some of them will be smaller. The goal is to just peel this outside part off of the garlic clove. Comes off like paper, and it's very smooth on the inside once you get it all off. And the inside of the clove can be a little sticky. Usually it's not until you cut into it, but sometimes this area here is as well. So that's what we have look like. I've already cut the ends off some of these garlic cloves over here. So when you're chopping your garlic clove, the first thing you do is just cut off the ends. You don't need those pieces, and then just carefully, while you've got, using a proper knife like this one here, just kind of carefully chop without cutting your fingers, ideally. Okay, and then we'll continue to chop into smaller pieces. Cutting the ones over here. For those of you who like the cheat method, you just hold one hand at the one end of the knife and you just chop away at the others. And again, this stuff does, the oil from it is very tacky. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to chop the rest of these, and then we'll move on to the tomatoes. Okay, now we have, I think the garlic is chopped fine enough at this point. I'm just going to put it in a separate dish for now. Before we begin cutting the vegetables, we have to make sure that a few other things are getting started. One of the things we're going to need at the end of preparation of the vegetables is a large pot of boiling water. So we'll go ahead and fill up a pot of water there. We also need to go ahead and hard boil 2 eggs. So these 2 eggs are working on hard boiling now. And once they're ready to go, we'll take them out. So this pot of water here that we're going to use, we're going to bring it to a rolling boil. Like the water should almost be jumping out at you kind of boil. This will be used later when we're getting the meat cooked. And keep in mind that we have 2 pounds of meat, so you'll need to have enough space in the pot to still put the 2 pounds of meat in it. We'll put that pot of water on to boil, and we have our hard-boiled eggs going, and we'll go back and start preparing our food, our vegetables for cooking. Alright, so we have our 2 peppers. I've chosen to use a red pepper and a yellow pepper. I like them because they're sweeter. Peppers, an orange pepper would work really good instead of the yellow one as well. I've poured them out. I usually cut a square in the top and the bottom, punch out the stuff, and remove the seeds by running my fingers through. And then now we'll go ahead and cut these. And we're going to dice them. So start with that there. And I always cut them long, and then I'll come and cross-section cut them after I get this part done. And try not to get your finger. I personally like peppers. You can use just 1 pepper if you like. If you have friends or cooking for people that are allergic to peppers, this is not the recipe for you. You can try and substitute it with some other fresh vegetable if you'd like, but I still personally think peppers are the best. It might be cool if my first video I cut my fingers off. Alright, so we've got a lot of peppers. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get these pieces a little smaller than they were. They're still a little too big. They're going to cook down a little bit when we cook them later, but you still want them to be very small. So I'll re-show the size of these once I finish modifying them. Think of it like you're making a relish out of pickles. Like I'm sure many of you have eaten relish on a hot dog or something like that. That's kind of what we're going for. Also, a very sharp knife makes this process a lot better. I changed up to a different knife that's quite a bit sharper and a bit longer as well. This looks a little better. If you can see on the knife, our chunks are quite a bit smaller. All right. Okay. All right, now we'll repeat with the red pepper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove our hard-boiled eggs off. If you'll see inside of the pot, I do have a little perfect egg timer. You can pick these up at Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, anywhere from like $3 to $6. So we'll take these eggs over to the sink, and we're going to slowly introduce cool water into it. You don't want it to be ice cold, but cool water into the pot, so as to not crack the eggs by shocking them with such a cool temperature compared to what they were. Alright, they're getting cooler. Once the water is the same temperature as the water coming out of the sink, we'll add some ice cubes until we're ready to crack them later. The water's getting close to temperature now. Okay. Alright, now we're going to add a few ice cubes to it to make sure that the inside of the egg doesn't stick to the shell. Or hands full of ice cubes will do. Let's probably pour a little water out. Okay. Alright, and we'll leave those to sit until a little later. So we're going to go ahead and cut the onion. Again, one medium-sized onion. While you're preparing it, just cut off the top and bottom like you normally would. I always do this while running it under cold water. That helps neutralize the oils that make your eyes burn. So, helpful trick there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and cut this. Same size as we were cutting the red pepper and the yellow pepper. So, very small diced chunks. Alright, so I've gone ahead and cut the rest of the onion, so now I'm going to go ahead and chop it. Just like we did the peppers before. So we'll just do small bits at a time. Chopping it very fine. Now we're going to work on cutting the tomatoes. So we have 3 Roma tomatoes. We'll cut the ends off on both sides. And I'll use a sharper knife. Okay, so now we're going to cut them. Use a sharper knife if it's possible so you don't have to apply pressure and squish the tomato. But we're going to cut it in fourths here. Okay, let me go get need to get me a cheese grater. But before that, I'm going to use the knife. So we're going to remove all the seeds in this middle section here. We want only the meat of the tomato. So you can see this one's already kind of coming off, but just kind of make sure that you get all that gone. I don't want any seeds or the slimy stuff. Now I want to make sure that we're using fresh ingredients, but if you wanted to substitute this with like a tomato paste of some sort, or an organic tomato paste or of something along those lines, you could do that as well. Doing this way allows you to put whatever seasonings you want into it instead of having whatever seasoning they put. Plus it's fresher and tastes better. So, alright, we can go ahead and get rid of this. Alright, so I've gotten out my cheese grater, and this is the interesting part. So our goal is to get all the meat of the tomato off, but also remove the skin. We're going to do this by using the thin side the small side of the cheese grater, and gently just going down till all the meat is removed from the flesh. Okay, as you can tell, this is going to be a lengthy process, so we'll go ahead and skip, and we'll come back once we're ready to use all these ingredients. Okay, so now we have finished going through the tomatoes and running them on the cheese grater, and we have this tomato paste here, which we will transfer into a dish for use when we start working on actually cooking the filling. So the next thing that we've got to do is we'll go ahead and start actually putting the stuff and mixing the ingredients in the saucepan. First we're going to start with a little bit of oil and the onion. We'll let that cook 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll introduce the ingredients one by one and let them cook together for about 2 to 3 minutes for each item to let the individual flavors actually contribute. So again, we'll start with the onion, then we'll add the garlic, and the garlic is extremely important that you don't overcook it, and you don't want it to get brown because then it ruins the flavor. After the garlic, we'll add the peppers, then we'll add the tomato paste, and add some seasoning, and we'll put it on very low heat and simmer for 30 minutes. So that part's coming up. Please watch and enjoy. First, we're going to start with a little bit of vegetable oil. It's about 3 tablespoons or so. We'll let that get a little warm here. Just to get the heat up and running. Okay, so the vegetables are going to heat up here a little bit, and basically we're just going to do some saute action on the onions once it heats up enough to do so. Okay, so we've had the onions in the pan here on about medium to medium high heat, and they are coming along now. We want to wait till they get to the point where they're about transparent before we add in the garlic. So they're cooking through now, and they're doing pretty good. What we're essentially making here, so when we add in the garlic and the peppers and the tomato paste, we're going to have essentially like a sauce that we're going to end up mixing with the meat. We still have our pot of water boiling on the side, and the pot of water is going to be used to flash cook the meat. Once we get a little closer to that point, we'll crank up the heat on the water so it gets to the point where it's on a really rolling boil. But until then, we'll prepare the sauce. The sauce portion, we're already about 2 minutes in. Takes about 30 minutes total, maybe 35. So what we're going to do is, the onions are cooking along here pretty good. Once you can smell them pretty good, and they're starting to offend your neighbors, you can go ahead and add in the garlic. And if your neighbors weren't offended yet, they will be now, if you're doing it right. We'll mix that in. We're going to turn down the heat a little lower, down to medium now that we have the garlic in. So again, we don't want to burn the garlic. If you see the garlic getting to the point where it might be getting a little brown, you need to turn the heat down a little bit. Those of you with electric ranges, it's most of the time safer to stay on the lower side of your range settings. Since the temperature is a bit harder to control, we'll let this cook for another minute, and then we're going to put in our peppers. And note that I'm not adding any seasoning yet until we get all the ingredients in. Once after we've cooked it for about 30 minutes, we will then taste, and we will season to taste with our seasonings that we had earlier. Think Italian meets Mexican. So that's kind of the seasoning arrangement that I've got in place for this. So it's got a little bit of earthiness with the oregano, but it's very taco-like with the paprika, the cumin, and the red pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and you see that the garlic is starting to get a little bit of color to it, which is good, but it's not brown. I'm going to add the peppers now. It is a lot of peppers, and like I said, you can use less. I just really enjoy peppers, so I just use 2 whole ones. But you can use as little as 1 pepper if you want to. Okay, we've mixed this up. We're going to turn the heat up just a little bit, back up to like the medium-high range, just to get the temperature back up. We want it kind of sizzling or simmering almost. We get all of our ingredients in. It's making me hungry. Okay, so if you smell, you can smell the peppers coming out now, and that's when it's about time to go ahead and add a tomato to it. So we'll go ahead and add the tomato now. Okay, and with the tomato, what we are going to do, with a little bit of seasoning we're going to do before we let it just simmer, is some salt and pepper. I have just black ground pepper and some sea salt, so nothing fancy. Just put a little bit, we can always add more later. Can't really take any out. General rule of thumb with cooking. Alright, we'll mix that in. You see it's got a nice rolling simmer to it, and we're going to turn it down just a little bit now that we have everything in here. And you can see that there's a lot of water coming out from the peppers and the onions, mostly the peppers though, and that's why we're going to simmer this here. It's going to take a lot of that water out. Okay, so again, we're going to reduce the heat down to medium, and we're just going to kind of let that simmer for the next little while. Okay, so we've had the sauce simmering here for about 30 minutes. And we also have our water coming to a rolling boil over here. So our next step is going to be to take the meat and put it in the boiling water. Then we're going to stir it up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of the meat here. So the goal here is to put the meat in and stir it up and break it into pieces as quickly as possible. So it's cooking it, it's flash cooking it while we break it up. Okay, this is really the healthier method of cooking the meat, and don't worry, there's not going to be any like disease or other things. The empanadas are going to get fried as well tomorrow, so just breaking the meat up. Okay, and this is also going to get some of the fat and grease out. Now, I started off with the video and mentioned that I used lean meat. I most of the time cook with lean meat, so when I make, you know, measurements on other things and what else I'm putting into the dish, I try to use as lean a meat as possible. So any calculations I do for, you know, vegetables that are going into it, etc., the amount of meat I put in is as close to what it is after it's cooked. Okay, so our next step is going to be to strain this meat out and put it in a dish. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and season the sauce now, but we also have strained the meat. So if we come over here, I've strained the meat after we cooked it, and we're going to take this to the pan, and we're going to put it in here, and we're going to season the sauce and put it over this. All right. Okay, so we're going to come over here to the saucepan. You see that a lot of the water's gone away, so we're going to season this to taste. First thing I'm going to do is put just a little bit of cilantro, literally just like a sprinkle. I want to get the herby taste in there. I'm going to take our Italian seasoning, and we're going to put just a little dash of that as well. Okay. So the biggest part of the seasoning here is going to be the cumin with a little bit of red pepper and a little bit of paprika. So we'll go ahead and open the paprika here without spilling it everywhere. It would be ideal. All right. I'll use a spoon to get a little dash. It's almost like making your own taco seasoning. Then just a dash of red pepper. We'd already put a little bit of regular pepper in here, so just a hint. We don't want it to be too hot. And last but not least, the cumin. This is what gives it the bulk of its flavor. Cumin has a very potent taste to it. Not everybody likes cumin, so depending on your crowd, you don't want to put too much. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to mix it up and taste it. Both myself and my trusty camera woman is going to have a taste to make sure it has a good flavor to it. Now, keep in mind we didn't season the meat, so we want it to have a very strong flavor so it can transfer into the meat while it sits overnight. Okay. so it tastes a lot of the peppers and stuff, but not a whole lot of the seasoning. So we'll add some more. We'll go back to the red pepper. I taste the herbs. Some more cumin. So we'll probably have close to a teaspoon. Start with half a teaspoon, but close to a teaspoon of cumin. You can smell the spices. Once it mixes in, it doesn't always. It's a little better. I'll have my cameraman try it. Camerawoman's gonna try it. Still tastes like it doesn't have a lot of the seasoning. I'm gonna add a little salt. Now, what a lot of people don't realize about salt is salt is not a flavor. Salt is not something you put in for flavor. Salt is something you put into cooking to make things more savory or more sweet. You put salt on a sweet thing, it's going to make it sweeter. You put salt on a savory thing, it's going to make it more savory. So salt's going to bring out the sweet flavors in the pepper, but also the savory flavors in the cumin and the paprika. So it should help enhance the flavor. And hopefully we got it this time. If you smell it, it's generally how it's going to taste, and you can smell the cumin. Some of the herbs. We have one more tasting spoon, so. Much better. It does have a little too much pepper, but once it gets in with the meat, it'll be better. So we'll go ahead and take this over now. Mix it in with the meat. Okay. All right, so we're going to mix this all up and kind of chop it up as we go too. Bring this in the light a little better. All right. So we're getting close now. Very much a labor of love, but I wanted to share this dish with you guys since you're going to be joining us for all of our, friend time and stuff like that. So it's one of those dishes. It's cold. It's winter time. It's one of those things that Grandma made when we were having family things. It's actually near my family's big birthday season, and we would always have a big party, and empanadas were usually one of the dishes that were made. So, right. Okay. Awesome. It looks tasty. Okay. This definitely got a very sweet taste to it. Wanted to have more of a savory taste. I'm going to put a little more cumin. smidgen more of salt. And I just really like oregano. Put a little more in there and it gives it a good smell. Love oregano. I think we're good. And we'll taste it again tomorrow before we put it in the shells once it sits overnight. Alright, so we have the last couple things we do before we wrap this thing up for today and put this in the fridge. And that is back to our boiled eggs. So you may have been wondering earlier, why the hell do you need boiled eggs? Well, it's because in the country version of this recipe, the one my grandmother makes, you actually take a hard-boiled egg and you grate it. Yolk and all into the dish. So we're gonna do that. Try not to get huge chunks. That's not working too well. It happens. And this will get mixed in as well. Try not to cut your finger open on anything. Alright, that's one egg. And some people will maybe only do, we're probably only going to do one egg. Now that I see the size of how much we ended up with. One last final polishing touch. It is some Parmesan cheese. Awesome. Alright, now we'll mix this last bit up. And this is the filling for our empanadas. And again, we'll taste this tomorrow to make sure that everything's seasoned the way we expect it to. It smells great. So if I were to explain the way it should smell almost like taco meat, but it will have it's be closer to fajitas because of the sweet peppers that we have in there. But yeah, it should smell similar to that, just not as heavy, not as spiced as fajitas are. Alright, so what we're going to do is we'll throw some plastic wrap over this, and we'll throw it in the fridge, and we'll bring it out when we're ready to stuff the shells. Okay everybody, so today I've gone ahead and pulled out the empanada mixture that we made yesterday. I have it all kind of flattened out. I flattened it out with a spoon, and I retested the flavor that we're getting from the actual mixture, just to make sure that it tastes the way I wanted it to. Today all I did was add a little bit of salt to bring out the flavors that are in it. So we're about ready to go and start stuffing the empanadas. So let's talk today about what we're actually going to need. You see I have some things set up over here. So what you see here is we have these are what are our empanada wrappers essentially. I have 5 packages of Goya brand empanada wrappers. You can make the dough yourself. I decided not to do that for this video for the interest of time, but these wrappers are almost as good as grandma's. She even uses these sometimes in order to do like big batches of them. So there are 10 discs in each one, where the recipe that we did makes about 50. It might be a little more, it might be a little less. So what I highly recommend most people do when you come to your dish, since you have 5 packages, just to kind of draw a line, just to make sure that you're not going to run out of filling. Just kind of mark out your areas of stuffing. So these are kind of even. This one might be a little bigger than some of the others, so we'll fix that. But this is what we're going to be stuffing in the empanadas now. I happen to have, be lucky enough to have, essentially like a little mini pie press or an empanada maker. You can do what we're about to do without having that by using a fork and one of the empanada things, and I'll show that method as well. Okay, so you're going to want to get yourself a couple of cookie sheets. Another thing that you'll want to do upon first taking out your empanada stuffing is to sprinkle a little bit of olive oil on it. So I had sprinkled a little olive oil and mixed up the mixture again, as well as putting some salt in there to finish seasoning it. So again, the basic method that we're using for the empanadas is, I'll show you the fork method and then the regular method. So I'm going to go ahead and come to the mixture here. I need to make 10 of them. So I'm going to get a little spoon of the mixture and put it in the middle here. Okay. Then I'm going to gently fold this over. So I'm going to set the camera down to kind of have a side view of what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to fold it over and push down along the edges while I'm doing that. Generally speaking, and actually I'm going to go ahead and do that. So one of the things that you want to do is take your finger in a little bit of water and run it around the edge of the crust. This will kind of make it a little tacky, so when we push down on it, it'll stick really good with the top side. You can do this with egg wash as well if you're into that. Water works just as good. Alright, so I'm going to push down the edges here. Okay, and so you'll see that our empanada looks kind of like this. So let me see if I can find my fork. I'll take my fork here and I'm going to come to the edges and gently press to create that seal between the top and the bottom. Just like one of those mini pies that you might buy at your local grocery store. Okay, and it should be pretty sealed. You can take a quick look at it and you can generally know, okay, is that going to hold still or not. The seal is extremely important, otherwise when we fry these things, they'll pop open and the filling goes everywhere we don't want it to go. So you just want to make sure it's a good seal all the way around. And we'll put it on our cooking sheet. We'll go ahead and put that bad boy right there. Okay, I'll show you how to use one of these little pie makers. You just put the shell on it and you kind of push down into the cavity here. And you take a little water with your finger. You're going to run it around the top edge. Okay, and that'll make it so it's tacky when you fold it to do that. Now we're going to take, I don't know, about a tablespoon worth of meat. Not too much. Again, from this whole pan we have to make 50 empanadas, so I usually mark mine out in fifths and then go and take 1/10 of each row or each column to do that. But I'll bring the camera in closer so you can see about how much meat we're putting in each one. And then after that, we'll go ahead and just keep a little bit of pressure on here while you're folding it, and just fold it. And you can see from the side, you don't want it to cut, you just want it to press. And then you'll open it back up gently and roll out the empanada. Now, you can take the empanada and hold it up to the light to make sure that you got a good seal. And this one looks like it was good. If it's not a good seal, you can take a fork and gently press it around the edges to make sure it has a good seal. But this one was good. I'm just going to show you anyway how to do it. Okay, and it looks good. So we'll keep rolling on these, and then we'll fry them here soon enough. Okay, so we have completed making our empanadas. We came a little short, and we had some extra ones. And you can either throw these back in the fridge and use them immediately, or if you wanted to stuff them, you can stuff them also with cheese and ham, or some other things. So here are our empanadas. We need to go ahead and get the frying pan ready. So I have a stainless steel frying pan to actually fry them in, and I'm going to be using shortening, Crisco vegetable shortening. Any vegetable shortening will really do. And we're going to do some pretty big scoops of this. We're going to start with pretty big scoops of shortening. So we've got to get the pan warmed up and get the shortening into the pan. It sticks to the spoon pretty good. So if the pan's warm, it'll help get that off your spoon. The goal is to have enough melted shortening in the pan to have the empanadas float. Alright, that's 1, 2, 3 big spoons to start with. That's like 2 so far. Let's do another chunk here. And we're going to let this melt down, see how much it ends up with. Alright, so we also have on the side, while this is kind of reducing for us here, I've gotten a very large bowl and set some paper towels in it, and I have extra sheets of paper towel over here. So the frying process is pretty quick with the empanadas. So you'll put the empanada in, and you'll wait till it's golden. You take it out, you shake it, and you shake as much of the oil off as possible. So when we actually pull it out of the frying, we're going to hold it, let it drip into the pan, and get as much oil off of it as possible, and then bring it immediately to the paper towel to get the oil off. So once this oil is ready, we'll go ahead and start frying, and we'll come back then. Alright, so our shortening is done now. The pan's a little less than halfway full. You don't want it too full because we're going to fry 3 empanadas at a time here. So the key is to bring the temperature of the oil up on high. And then as we put them in, we're going to turn it down to like medium high while they're actually cooking. And then we turn them back to high when there's no empanadas in to keep the oil hot. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in 3 empanadas here. Or actually, we need to check and see how ready the oil is. And I've got a couple pieces of extra like dough stuff. So and you can see here that it's, I think it's ready to rock and roll. Okay. So the first step is going to be, and we put them in pointy edge first because it'll be easier for us to flip them. All right. So we'll set 3 in there. Okay. And we're going to wait till they get golden brown on the edges, and we're going to flip them. I've got a spoon and a fork to flip these with. So they're kind of frying away here. And I'm, again, turn it down to medium high while they're cooking. and you can see them getting kind of golden here. They're getting golden around the edges. That's when we want to go ahead and flip. It doesn't take long. This is the first one I put in. Give it a couple more seconds. Alright, and then we're going to take it out, and when we take it out, we're going to bring it up like this, and we're going to make sure that we let the oil drip out of it as much as possible. Then we're going to bring it over and put it in our bowl. Okay, so we'll take the next one, getting as much oil out of it as we can, and we bring it in our bowl. And the last one. These ones may be a little overdone, so we'll go a little faster with the next batch here. Okay, again, we're gonna put the heat back up to high. We'll give it a second. I have one of these empanadas has little extra piece I can take off. I'll just toss it in there and see, it looks like it's good to fry. So I'll go ahead and put 1, 2, 3 in. Turn the temperature down to medium high again. We'll just keep a close eye on them here, so I cook them a little less than they did last time. See how they're getting golden around the edges very quickly there? Alright, we're going to go ahead and flip that one. We're going to flip this one as well. Be very careful when you're flipping them, not to burn yourself. Huh? One of our empanadas just kind of popped open here. Get that out as quickly as possible. So if they don't have a good seal, that's what happens to it. They opened it? 2 of them did, yeah. Huh? Okay. And as we're going, put an extra paper towel between the different rows. I've not done that yet on the last one. Okay. All right. Now our oil is very hot, so we're not putting it back up to high again. As you can tell, it's cooking very quickly. And you can see the golden coming over on the edge here, so we'll flip it. take them out. Yep. Let the grease get off. Transfer. Transfer. Okay.